Hey there guys, welcome to Stanley Chess. Glad to have you. Hope you're having a great day. I played in an over-the-board tournament a couple weeks ago, and I would like to walk through one of those games with you. This was a tournament where we had 4 rounds. Each game was 50 minutes per player with a 5-second delay. So a decent amount of time to think through your moves. Not a full classical game, you know, like 2-3 hours per player, but 50 minutes still beats the 3-minute blitz games that we're all used to, right? So let's hop into the game. I'm playing with the white pieces. This was actually the last round of the tournament. Didn't go too great for me. I had 1 win, that was pretty easy, and then 3 losses. This was one of the losses. Last game, I was tired. I wanted to go home, right? So I play e4, and we have a Caro-Kann from my opponent. Now, I play the Caro-Kann with black. With white, I like to play the advance and then the tall variation. So this is tall because your pawn is very tall. That's a false statement. It's named after, what's his name? Mikhail Tal? I think that might be how you say it. I hope that's his name. Otherwise, I'm just a fool. Let me know in the comments. But anyway, he's a guy. He was a grandmaster, very aggressive player, as we see with the move h4. The idea of this opening, right, is like the trap behind it is that if black plays e6, the bishop is trapped. Right? The bishop, you lose the bishop, you lose the game, bye-bye. So my opponent's pretty good. He doesn't fall for it or anything. He plays h5. Now, h5 is a move. It's a good move. Play bishop g5, and we have queen b6, and all of this is my prep, right? All the way up until here, I knew what I was doing. So here, my prep, right, you have to know the tricky lines if you're playing tricky openings, is queen b2, right? Because obviously, like, you have to know what you're doing here. You don't want to just lose a rook for nothing. The idea is to play e6. e6. Isn't that crazy? e6. Because guess what? If you push, well, then I just go back. And now you've got this going on. You don't want that with your king. And then if you take, well, then, you know, we're probably just going to chill and play like knight f3 or something and get the knight into e5 and the queen over here to, and try to checkmate black, right? That's kind of the idea. Now, if black takes, we play like, let's say knight f3, queen takes a1, you lose the rook, right? Queen b3 tries to kind of trap the queen in, and the queen can't take the pawn here because your knight defends it, and the queen is kind of trapped. No squares for that queen. You can play like knight f6, castles, and it's very tricky. Very, very tricky for black, right? Because the queen, where's she going? Where's she going? She's trapped. The computer says it's like plus 0.7, but you have to give up the queen. Like, there's nothing else here. You just lose the queen. And who wants to play a game down a queen, right? I don't care if the computer says it's equal. Anyway, let's go back. That was a long tangent into my opening preparation. But we have bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, and e6, my opponent not allowing me to play e6, instead shutting the door, trying to get the dark squared bishop out. I play knight d2 and queen a6. My opponent's, thinking, man, this guy's playing in this tricky opening. I don't know it too well. I just want to get the queens off the board and chill, right? I just kind of want to, kill the game here and try to dwell into an endgame. So I don't take, because I don't want to allow, his knight to get activated here. So instead, I play queen b3, looking to maybe play c4 and just kind of keep the queens on the board. He really wants a queen trade. Now, I'm not going to take that either, because I don't want to open up his rook on the a file. So instead, I just say, you know what? You want to trade queens? Fine, but you're going to have to take me. I'm going to develop a piece so that when you take, I get the open or the semi-open file for my rook, and I'm going to try and play c4 if I get the opportunity. And I thought I was doing okay here. So we have c5, very principled from my opponent, striking in the center, counterattacking. Now here I castle, and we have knight c6. Computer says here I should be more active. I should play actively with d takes c5, allowing my opponent to catch up a bit in development. The bishop comes out, but the idea is to play c3 and b4. kicking the bishop back. So you're fighting on these dark squares here, controlling them all in the center. Your knight is doing a good job as well of that. And you've got this knight coming in, jumping in, right? You've got these nice outposts. Well, they're not really outposts because the pawn can always kick them out, but nice squares for the knight. Regardless, the dream home for the knight is d6, right? And that was kind of my aim for the entire game, was to get, my hair is so silly, I just showered. My aim of this entire game was to get my knight into d6, but my opponent decided to be a good chess player and not allow me to do that, which was very frustrating. So anyway, yeah, this is the line the computer shows, b5, kicking the knight back, because where's the knight going? You're gonna go to a5 and run into b4? You're gonna go to d4 and lose the knight? You're gonna take here and go for a fork? Well, actually, that kind of works. The computer says here, you can either drop the knight back, and then when this happens, jump in with the knight here, and now you're attacking e6, and that actually looks pretty good. But instead of any of that, I play passively, and I drop the bishop back to e3, defending the center. So that when all these exchanges happen, I've got two knights, my opponent has a knight and a bishop, and we're gonna try and get the knight into d6 if I can, which is quite difficult. So the bishop comes out to c5, knight jumps into b5 looking for a fork, right? So the king defends against the fork and also keeps an eye on the d6 square. And so here I play knight f3. I should play c4 right away, or this crazy line. Are you ready for this? Are you wearing socks? Because they're about to get knocked off. b4 is what the computer says. Sacrificing a pawn to get the knight into b3, because there was a pawn there. So it's a clearance sacrifice. You clear out the b3 square, to get the knight into b3, and then play c3, and the bishop's trapped. Yeah, knight on b3 controls this square. And where are you going with the bishop? You can't. You can try and attack the knight, I just go back, and your bishop is literally trapped. Now, black doesn't have to lose the bishop after knight b3. They can play king d7 to, if you go back here, then you're getting forked, right? So you can keep the king in the center and clear up the e7 square for the bishop, so that after c3, bishop e7, c4, another pawn sacrifice to get the rooks involved. And you're just attacking the king. 2 pawns down, and guess what? We're going to take here with check. You have to sacrifice the exchange for black, and then you give up the knight. So now you have 2 rooks for a rook, knight, and bishop. So it's 2 pieces for a rook, which normally isn't good, because that's, if you count the material, 2 points of material better for the 2 pieces, right? Or 1 point. Math is hard sometimes, because 2 pieces would be 6 points. A rook is 5 plus 1. I counted 2 because here it says plus 2. But that's because black would have another pawn. But anyway, this isn't math class. This is a chess YouTube video. So, but look at this position, right? These double pawns are going to die. The B pawn is passed, and black has no development here. And the king is in the center with the rooks about to bully it, right? Rook a8 paralyzes the position. The black knight can't move. The rook can't move, or the knight hangs. And the dark squared bishop can try and fly out and grab a pawn, but we're going to give some checks. And just, would you want to play this with black? Would you? You can't move the knight. You can't move the bishop, right? What is going on in the black position? Now, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. Instead, I play knight f3, defending, or adding defense to this pawn and maybe trying to get a knight into d4 or something. And here I play c4. Now, doesn't that hang a knight? No, because the rook was on the other side and the knight never developed, so that would be a free rook. Thank you very much. So I play this c4 move. Knight h6 defends the rook, connects the rooks. So now I drop the knight back. And then after the pawn takes on c4, I don't recapture right away. I have all these intermezzos, right? Because I was kind of tired at this point. I was kind of done with the tournament. I'm playing fast. My opponent taking a lot of time. So I'm trying to stay up on the clock. And my opponent, here, when he played a6, was expecting my knight to move. So I play c4, and he was up looking at another game. He walks over to back to our board, and he goes... And it was just funny watching his reaction. At first, he was like, can he do that? And he's like, yeah, he can do that. And then here, when I play knight e4 instead of auto recapturing on c4. Point being, you know, the bishop is hanging. His similar reaction, I played it and he went, and he was just like annoyed, and that was kind of the point. I made him think for a while. So he plays bishop b4, and then I retake, and then play b3 to defend the pawns. Now these pawns are a bit weak. I don't love them, and I don't really have a way to get to these pawns. Now remember, I'm trying to get a knight into d6. I'm trying so hard in my brain to find creative ways to get the knight into d6. It's impossible. You can't kick this bishop out. How do I get a knight to c2? I have to go to like e1 to c2 or like to d3 to kick the bishop out. But that proves to be very difficult because the rook comes out to the d file. So I also, you know, try to fight for the only open file here, and knight f5. Now his knight's getting active, okay? I play g3, solidifying everything, right? So now my knight is not tied to the defense of the h4 pawn. And we have a5, solidifying the bishop on b4, and I bring king f1, which is, according to the computer, the best move here, which I think is really funny that I found it. I probably didn't find it for the right reasons. In fact, I know I didn't. But the fact that I played it is kind of funny. The idea when I played king f1 was not what the computer says, which is king e2. Like running the king to the center of the board and defending everything with the king on the light squares. That's really funny. You're just controlling, you're trying to fight for all the light squares because black has the dark square bishop, so you're trying to avoid those squares, right? It makes sense. But my idea was I wanted to get the knight to c2 to kick the bishop out and try and like play b4 maybe and like open up my rooks over here and get to the king. But after knight e1, I realized that after something like rook d4, because the knight gives up the d4 square, which is very important in this game, the knight gets into d4, I have to defend b3, and then there's like takes, and a fork, and I realized like with the king on e1, the knight is just going to be able to fork the pawn on e5, and that's just really annoying. So after king f1, I play king g2. This is like somewhat offering a draw to my opponent, being like, hey, this position's kind of dead. Can we like move on? Now, it's not entirely dead. It's just that like everything is locked up. The knight's, you know, the bishop doesn't have any targets really. And it's just there's not really a way for either side to make great progress here. Not easily anyway. But he gets tired of it and he decides to create some imbalance in the position with a4. Now, here is where I was still playing a bit too fast. I mean, like taking, obviously you have to, you know, you're going to take that. And then rook takes, the rook gets in, I drop my knight back, and rook c2. Now here it's quite simple. It's very simple. If you take your time to think about it, which I did not. I blundered the game here, a one-move blunder, which was very, very sad way to end the tournament. I might have been able to hold on to this for a draw. It's so, you just have to like move the king. Everything's defended. Just don't do anything. And black, like, don't do anything. Black can't do anything. Black can win a pawn, and that's annoying, right? Black can win this pawn, and you get something like the knight jumping into the center. You can trade knights, and you can go like here. Now, it's tricky, because if you play like bishop c5, it's mate, which, you know, that's really funny that you can somehow get a checkmate out of nowhere, right? You go from this position where everything is on the back rank to like checkmating the king, which is really, really funny. But you just don't allow that, right? You drop back with the bishop, you can trade, and now you're just in a rook endgame down a pawn. But like all these pawns on the same side of the board, if you know what you're doing, you should be able to hold the draw. Now, I don't know what I'm doing, mind you, so I probably would have lost the game anyway. However, none of that happened. Instead, I decided to be stupid brain, play in like, you know, a minute when I have like 12 on the clock against his like 3 or something like that. It was a big time discrepancy. I think he was under 10 minutes. I might have had over like 15. I had a lot more time to think, and I should have, but instead I was like, nah, this position's boring me. The entire game, I've been trying to think of creative ways to reroute my knights to different squares. Like I was literally thinking about all the different ways that my knights could go from like here to here to here to here to here. Like just all the which ways to get my knights around the board. And I've been putting off telling you what move I played here because of how painful it was. Knight e4. Now, why is this losing for white? Knight e3 check. He played this move and I resigned. Because it's just a fork. You can't take that. Pawn's pinned. It was a tricky move to see at the end of the tournament. You know, I'm tired. I want to go home. I've lost 2 other games brutally to like a 1900 and a 1500. And yeah, it's just tough to see because, you know, the knight's here right now, so the pawn isn't currently pinned, so you have to visualize, right? Which, why on earth would I visualize and calculate when I could just make a move off of, you know, nothing? You just have to see that the rook opens up and the pawn gets pinned, and then your king and rook are on forkable squares, and you should be extra aware when that is the case, and you have a knight near the king. That's something that, you know, you just got to be aware of. But instead, I play knight e4 and blunder the game away. I resign, and that was the tournament. Lost some rating in that one, but, you know, not too bad. I think my current USCF over the board rating is 1422 after this tournament. I'm hoping to play in another tournament next month. I believe this tournament that I just played in here happens every month, so I'm going to try and go, you know, monthly, and I'm going to try and improve. Because, you know, what are you going to do but analyze your games and learn from the losses and get better every time you go back. Yeah, so if you made it to the end of the video, as always, I'd like to thank you. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe. Helps me out here. It tells YouTube, hey, let's show his videos to more people. And that makes me happy. Anyway, I've taken up enough of your time. Have a great rest of your day, guys.